Hello there. This is a little recap video, but of a different game I ran today for a couple of my players. We ran, as you can see in the video, I used the Dragon Slayer RPG, and we used the Barrowmaze Adventure, and both written by a Greg Gillespie. Wrote both of those. Dragon Slayer, if you're not familiar with it, was my first time running it. It's a very old school style OSR game. Remind me a lot of playing like older editions of D&D, Basic Expert, and AD&D. Fairly simple system. Once we wrapped our head around doing the armor class the old way, which was fine once we got used to it. So, like I said, I had two players in Barrowmaze. They were playing, my son was playing, and he played Garrin, which is halfling rogue, or sorry, halfling thief. And my cousin Dan was playing human paladin, Squire Pendrake Hawkmoor of Osfric, aspiring paladin of St. Yig. And I think he's the seventh son, too. So he had quite the long title, which was pretty humorous. We started off, get some characters together, finish up the characters before we got started. And then I gave them a little brief history right out of the Barrowmaze book on the village of Helix, which is where the campaign starts. You can start in other areas in Barrowmaze, but Helix seems to be the place where it should start. It's pretty fleshed out village, and it's near the Barrowmoor, which is located... the village of Helix is set right on the edge of the border of the Barrowmoor, and in the Barrowmoor is all these different mounds and burial mounds and stuff. So they were going off to investigate them. So we got started with that. They went to the Brazen Strumpet, which is the tavern in the village, and with the intent to recruit some hirelings, because they only had each other. There was only two players, so I told them, you guys are going to need some hirelings. The game's kind of geared for that, so they went there to get some hirelings. For that, I used the online service that the Greg Gillespie has made, something Meat Shields it's called, and you can randomly generate some hirelings. And you can get, in Dragon Slayer, you have different types of hirelings. You can have henchmen, which are, I think, are classed characters. They didn't get any of those because they're too expensive and they suck up too much XP from the party. They get a full share of treasure and a full share of XP. They got a man-at-arms. They got a dwarven man-at-arms named Malm, and they got Zippy the War Dog. And this is all names that came right up from the generator, which was really helpful. And we had a lot of fun with it too. And then they got Bolmir, who is a human, and he's a torchbearer. He doesn't do any fighting, but he can carry a torch, so they don't have to worry about it. He's very less expensive than hiring the other ones. So this wasn't just something we did like mechanically. Like there was some role play involved. Like they were looking around, they talked to one of the barmaids, Tacy, and she pointed out Malm the dwarf. So one of the characters went over and talked to him. Actually, it was Garrin. Went over to talk to him. I described him as a dwarf, and he had some equipment that rolled up with his when he was generated. And he had already had chainmail armor and a shield. So I was like, yeah, he's sitting over there with, drinking a mug of ale. He's got a battle axe leaned up against his table. So Garrin goes over to talk to him and swipes another beer off someone else's table without them noticing. Actually had him roll a pickpockets roll, and he was successful. So the guy never noticed Garrin steal his mug of ale. So he brings it over, plops it down in front of Mullen, and asks him if he wants to venture off into the Barrowmaze, into the Barrowmoor, and he says yes. So then Tacy also turns him on to there's been a dog. This war dog that's been around the village and the inn, and they've been feeding it. And Garrin volunteers to take the war dog on. That was Zippy the war dog, and she proved to be very valuable. Although we'll get into some mistakes I made with her. But the torchbearer was this guy Barrowmoor. He was funny because I described this peasant-looking guy sitting over at a table, and this guy was sipping a hot tea, and they thought that was pretty funny. And then the generator for these guys has like some notable features or possessions and stuff. So one of the thing that popped up for this, completely randomly generated, was he's like one of those people that like don't have any like real visible lips, like a very thin lips. So everybody got a good chuckle out of that as he was sipping his tea. Squire Pendrake went over to approach him, and one of the other things they noticed about him when he sat down to talk to him was that he had a book on the table, and it was this book about gnolls. It was this whole gnoll bestiary of the realms, and so he was reading up on that, and so he's kind of a down on his luck, poor bookwormish fellow. So they ask him if he wants to join, and he's like, oh yeah. So Squire Pendrake actually slides him a gold piece, which was way over what he cost to hire, and he was hooked after that. So they do that, and he actually ended up buying the torchbearer some leather armor to help protect him a little bit, which came in a little handy later on when they were adventuring. And then they set off, and they set off into the Barrowmoor, which was described as a very thick, tangled, fog-laden barrow. It's wet. It was early summer, so it's not the real wet season, but it's still wet. And they decided to head a little bit south, I guess. And so this part, I had them travel a little bit. I rolled for some random encounters, didn't come up with any. There's a lot of random tables in the Barrowmaze adventure, and even in a Dragon Slayer, the RPG. So we kind of leaned into that random table thing. I had a barrow prepared for them to plunder, but like kind of leaned into the randomness of it, and that proved to be a lot of fun. So they find a small barrel along the way, and it's sealed. It's not covered. It's just sealed. So they had bought the proper equipment. So Garrin and Mullen take a sledgehammer and iron spikes, and they get the door open. Roll some for random encounters while that happens, and they don't come up with any. So they get in, and they find this one right here. They find this. It's a very small barrel. One of the things as a paladin, Squire Pendrake, he's using his detect evil ability, and he does sense evil within the barrel mound. So they go in cautiously. They see the sarcophagus, and they surround it with Barrowmoor kind of staying back. He's just holding the torch for them so they can see what they're doing. They get their hands free, and they surround the sarcophagus, and Garrin has a crowbar that he had bought, so he pries it open, and a zombie lurches out, and they do battle with the zombie, and it was a pretty quick fight. Nobody actually got hurt. None of the party members got hurt, and they made short work of the zombie. Where I made a mistake was when I rolled up for followers and I got Zippy the war dog. I didn't read the entry in this book about war dogs, and they fight, but they don't fight undead. So I didn't realize that. So I had it fight, and we've kind of come up with a solution to that issue. So I didn't realize it until towards the end of the adventure. So I just let it ride because it had already happened a few times. It had already happened then, and it will happen later on. So from this sarcophagus, they did get some treasure out of that. And I guess I didn't write down what they got, but I know they did. But they did get some treasure out of it, which was good because they are. It starts off, when you start off, you don't really have a lot of money. I mean, you roll for your money and have some extra, and I know Garrin was pretty much tapped out with all of his money, so they're really looking for some cash. Squire Pendrake, he had a little bit more money, but then he can't have more than 100 because he's 100 gold pieces because he's a paladin. So he upgraded equipment and spent what he could and gave money to Garrin to outfit and hire more hirelings. but he could only have a low amount too. So, was it the one? Just looking at my notes here to see. Okay, yeah. No, they did find treasure here. I didn't happen to write it down. But they leave here and they continue south. They'd left early in the morning. They knew that they didn't want to stay out. They were told by the villagers not to stay out in the Barrowmoor after dark because it got very dangerous. So they continue on. One of the other things we did at the beginning too that I had forgotten is there's a random in the Barrowmaze adventure. There's random rumors table, so they both got to roll on that. Garrin learned that altars can be dangerous, and Squire Pendrake, he learned that there was a group of tomb robbers that had gone out into the Barrowmoor, plundered a barrow mound, and came back with a silver chalice worth 666 gold pieces. So that was kind of interesting to them. And I know Garrin made some comments about trying to find those guys and steal that from them. But they didn't follow up on that, at least not yet. So they continue south, a few more random encounter rolls, and I don't come up with anything. So they find a larger barrow mound that they kind of follow the same routine. They'd established a marching order, and then after the first one, they'd established, kind of a order of operations. So Garrin and Mullen are working the sledge and spike to get the door open, which they do. I roll some more because it causes a lot of noise. And one of the things I told them about the barrow mound is it's mostly very, very eerily silent. And they'll occasionally hear water plopping or a bullfrog or a raven. But other than that, it's very, very quiet. Kind of a low visibility thing too, with the heavy fog and dense vegetation. But still didn't get any random encounters with that. So they make entry into the barrow, and they come in this way through this room. I'll give you guys a close-up in a bit. And they're confronted by so in the marching order, Squire Pendrake is in the lead, along with Mullen, the dwarven man-at-arms, and followed up by Barrowmoor, the torchbearer, and then Garrin and the war dog Zippy. So when they come into this room, something rises up out of the shadows, and it's shrouded in bandages and debris and bone and burial bandages and stuff. So it's an undead type creature. It was actually a crypt shade, which is out of the Barrowmaze book, and it attacked Squire Pendrake, went after him, and then it ended up actually going after Zippy, because once a combat got joined, Zippy became like the MVP, because my son was controlling the dice rolls for the war dog, and it was doing really well. Again, per the rules, it shouldn't have been attacking undead, but I didn't know that at the time, so we just went with it. Like I said, I didn't learn that until later. But Zippy quickly became the MVP. And they finished off the crypt shade. I don't think they took any damage. And it was a little bit tougher than what they'd faced before, but they didn't take any damage from it. They clear that room, and they find in that room the body of a dead dwarf. And on him, he had some wolfsbane in a pouch. He'd been dead for a while. So they collect that, and then they go over to this room next. So they go over here. There's a door here that's shut. They don't check the door or anything, which they learned was a mistake, because when Squire Pendrake opened the door, it set off an arrow trap that shot out and happened to hit him in the shield. But they're like, oh, maybe we should start checking these doors. So they go in there, and the only thing they find in that room was a helmet, and it was a head. And it was old. It'd been around a while, but it had this look of horror on its face. So Squire Pendrake, who's at this time, he didn't really buy. He bought armor, but he bought leather armor because money was tight. So he didn't have much armor. So he's like, he keeps the helmet, plops the head out, and then eventually plops it on his head. And they clear that room. They then backtrack and come over here to this room. And in this room over here, there's a statue, but they can't make out who it belongs to because the head of it's been totally defaced. There's a big pile of bones, and they start rooting around in that. Squire Pendrake starts rooting around in that, and it starts moving, and they find like a giant rat in there. But the rats don't attack them. They kind of scurry away, and then they start to notice like holes in the walls, at the base of the walls, which are for the rats. So they don't, I don't think they found anything else in here. Oh, no, I lied. They did. Underneath the pile of bones, they find the body of a halfling, a dead halfling. It's been dead for a while. And that was randomly generated off one of the tables in the book. I think it was the Barrowmaze book, I think. Again, I'm confused sometimes. Really new to me. And we rolled some randomly for some treasure. So he had some, when it came up, he was like 50% equipped. So they got like a javelin, and he had he was wearing ringmail. I don't know if they kept that or not. They didn't say they did. But they found a javelin, and which Garrin kept because he can use that. And there was something else he found too. I don't remember what it was. Yeah, I don't remember what it was. Oh, and I will backtrack a little bit to the first barrel mount. I just remember what they did. They found I think it was a silver necklace on the zombie, and they also found a ring, which Garrin kept at least kept the ring. He actually put it on. It didn't do anything to him that he noticed, but he was wearing it. So they clear this room, they check the dead halfling, take him for what they have, then they decide to go down here. And this room here is, I described it, the floor is flooded, and it has a sarcophagus over here. So they start to go down, and when they go down, a horde of skeletons rise up, sit up out of the water. The water is, knee deep to maybe a little deeper, almost to the waist. So they get in a fight here. This was their most dangerous fight. Previous to that, they hadn't, I don't think they'd taken any damage. Maybe Zippy took some damage, but in this fight, Squire Pendrake took damage. He took a lot of damage, actually. He got hit pretty good. I think he was down to like 3 hit points after 1 hit. Zippy took some damage, and Barrowmoor, actually, the torchbearer, took some damage to the point, he didn't take a lot of damage, but like he's not a combatant, so he ended up retreating back up here and just illuminating it and let everybody else take care of it. And again, Zippy proved to be very valuable. At this point, I had learned that I'd made a mistake with the dog. She should not be attacking undead, but I'd already let it happen like 3 times, so we just let it continue, and I said I'd figure out a way to sort it out later. So this was a tough fight, and there was a little bit of damage. They were a little nervous. There was even a brief mention of retreating out of here to get away from the skeletons, but then the battle changed pretty quickly, and they rode it out and finished them off, which was great. And in here, we started using I had some treasure in place, but then I started using the random tables and having the guys roll for me, and they found a few items that were kind of interesting. They found a shield, a book of a comprehensive guide to wands, which they gave to Barrowmoor because he's a bookworm, so they gave that to him to make him happy. The shield was found underneath the water down here. They were rooting around. I said they found it, and it was actually a shield. It had the symbol, which is a cross, a red cross on a white field for St. Yig. So they found that, and obviously Squire Pendrake took that. They also found in the sarcophagus, they found some monetary stuff too, but they also found 2 rune stones, and those turned out to be, which were randomly rolled, but they turned out to be rune stones of impact. There was 2 of them. We figured out later what they did. But yeah, that was the conclusion. So they cleared that out. There was some talk about going back here and defeating the rats, but they were like, it didn't really make sense. The rats weren't evil, and They didn't really seem to want to fight, so they just decided to leave. On their return to Helix, I did roll for a random encounter. It was getting late in the day. We kind of had a window of time to play. So I rolled up, and it ended up being a couple giant frogs or toads. And we just kind of narratively did that they were able to bypass them, and not a big deal. So we got back to Helix, and they did a little bit of like investigation. Like I know Garrin used his appraisal skills to find out what a lot of stuff was worth, and he was doing that all along when they would find stuff. Eventually they learned that the ring that Garrin found and put on was actually a ring of protection +1, and then the shield, we kind of I asked Dan what he was doing with that, and he said he was out practicing and doing different things with it. So I kind of described to him, it was all on the fly, that Brother Othar, who's the cleric in charge of the Shrine of St. Yig in the village of Helix, sees him, and he explains to him that shield looks like it belonged to a paladin named Sir Logax, a paladin of St. Yig, that had come to Helix, recruited some followers, and headed into the Barrowmoor, because he said that he had like a premonition or a vision, maybe from St. Yig, of some powerful undead in the Barrowmoor. So he went in to hunt them down, and none of those guys ever returned. And in turn, that ended up, they deduced that the dead dwarf and halfling they found were indeed those followers. So that was kind of fun for me, because that was all kind of created on the fly. It's nothing I wrote ahead of time, and we had a good time with it. Yeah, and that's where we ended the session. I think everybody, from talking to them afterwards, had a good time. The system's, fairly simple. It's old BX, old style D&D stuff, which was really good. The Barrowmaze is nice. One of the things I really like about the Barrowmaze is it's perfect for like a West Marches campaign, because you try to get in and out. You don't want to spend the night either in a Barrowmount or in the Barrowmoor, because it's too dangerous. You can, but it's very dangerous to do that. So I like to run those style of games. It works great with my group, because all adults, and it's hard to schedule people. Like typically on today's when we play, we have 3 players, and we couldn't do that today, so we played this. I'd like to revisit it. The guys that played also expressed that. You'll probably see, like, if we get really into it, and they get into the Barrowmaze, which is the main mega dungeon, you'll probably see a change up on how I do games a little bit. There won't be as much 3D terrain, because it would just be impossible. That the map is immense for that particular mega dungeon. It's like 6 pages in the book. So we're already talking about getting a big, Chessex battle map that we can put plexiglass over and draw the maps out here. And what I would do is, if I knew ahead of time, like maybe there was going to be a big encounter somewhere, then I would build something out and do that. We'd still use miniatures and scatter terrain and stuff like that. And we're actually already looking in game. I found a miniature online that will represent the Barrowmoor, the torchbearer, because it was a lot of fun. Like it was neat, because the guys really kind of took to the NPCs and made them kind of fleshed them out while we were playing, and made them part of the party. And everybody was a big fan of all of them, really. They were all unique, and which was neat. Probably shouldn't get attached to them. I was amazed nobody got killed, because there was a couple times where I thought it was going to happen, but it was really good. I mean, they even upgraded Zippy, the war dog, upgraded her, gave her some leather armor, so she's a little bit even tougher to hit. But yeah, it was real fun, and real simple to set up. So I'm looking forward to doing it again. And I'm not sure when that's going to be. Hopefully soon. And yeah, you should see some more, hopefully, Dragon Slayer and Barrowmaze on the channel. Thanks for watching.